Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Big thank you to the subscribers. It's eking up, which is really nice to see. Definitely nice to get that sort of support and encourage me to do this. But that idea about thanking the subscribers, having a look at how many subscribers I've got, and knowing that I'm getting close to another milestone is kind of linked to this video. So this is a response video to a video that was put up by Kim from Middle of the Book March, and that channel, Kim, she put up a fantastic discussion video that was literally called Irritated by Booktube, and obviously that title makes you go, ooh, what's this? And her videos have been brilliant in the past anyway, and this is a really good and important discussion video about pressure. The pressure that booktubers might have to put up certain kinds of content and have certain backdrops on their videos and to have certain kind of quality to their videos. She touched on quite a few things. I'm going to I wanted to respond as a video because there's so much said in the video and so much I wanted to say that it was more than just a comment. And I think at the heart of it, even though it's about Booktube, I think it's about everybody. I think it's about not competing with the rest of the world anyway, and don't let your impressions, your perception of what someone else is doing cloud your judgment of what you're doing. It's focused on Booktube, which is what this video is going to be focused on, but just wanted to start by saying I do think it's a general big point about life in general, that I don't think we should be competing with each other with unrealistic goals or unrealistic comparisons, or just being unfair to ourselves. You know, we've got different lives, we've got different priorities, we've got different goals. There's no need for us to always put ourselves down and not be satisfied with what we're doing and feeling inadequate for not doing whatever it is that someone else is doing. You know, we're different people. To be more specific about what Kim said in her video, the first point she made was about booktubers saying that they felt there was a lot of pressure to read a lot of books, and that they felt like they needed to match the quantity of other booktubers, and they'd watch videos where they'd go over their statistics and how many books they'd read, how many pages they'd read, or even maybe looking at statistics, possibly like some booktubers do. They look at the statistics of how much money they've earned from their channel. I've seen that before. And you know, you might be watching that just thinking, oh, this is crazy. I'm not reading enough. I'm not reviewing enough. I'm not talking enough about books, or I'm not posting enough. And therefore, that's why I haven't got as many subscribers, or, you know, I'm not as successful as this other channel. It's easy to do that. It's very easy to do that. But ultimately, it's a very dangerous way of messing up your mental health, and it's not useful at all, because I don't think anybody who watches Booktube channels even thinks about how many books that Booktube is reading. There are some Booktubers that we know read a lot. So Kim mentioned Steve Donahue. He says a lot how much he reads, but he also says that it's his job and he spends all day reading. And Ollie from Criminal Ollie says on his videos how frequently he reads books, and when he did his 100 book challenge, I was shocked at how quickly he went through the 100 book challenge. They were quite small books, but I was still shocked because he reads quite fast and I think quite frequently. But again, you know, when I thought about doing the 100 book challenge myself, because I thought it was such a good idea, I knew that would kill off, I don't know, at least a year of my reading. I wouldn't be able to buy a book for over a year. So I thought it wouldn't really suit me, but it suited Ollie because he reads books that much quicker. So I didn't judge my own sense of adequacy on it. I just knew that I couldn't do the 100 book challenge in the same way, so I did a 30 book challenge. But the point is, it's very easy to think, oh, well, I'm not really reading as many books. Am I as good a reader? You know, am I fulfilling my function as a booktuber? I mean, I'm a very small channel, so I probably should have said this right at the beginning, that I'm a very small channel, and I'm sure my opinions don't matter, but also I'm not coming from years of experience on Booktube or years of success on Booktube. So that's not my perspective. That's not where this is coming from. But I have learnt some lessons while doing this, and I have learnt some lessons as a musician as well. So obviously, well, not obviously, you might not know, but I've been writing and gigging and performing for many decades, so for 30 years. And through that whole time, you know, there's loads of lessons learnt about whether or not you should be comparing yourself to somebody else local or somebody else national or somebody else international, how you should be judging your festival slots or your Spotify listeners, or how many albums you sell, or how big your audience is, what kind of venues do you play at, what sort of fee you're demanding for your gigs, or, you know, I just don't think that's positive or constructive at all. But it is definitely something that everybody does. I mean, I'm using this band analogy because I do think that that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about people who start something new, like like Kim says, Booktube is definitely a hobby, and it's a lot of fun. It's a way of connecting to people. It's a way of making friends, which I think, we're always saying how grateful we are for the connections we make on Booktube. So that is what it's about. And if you start reading too much into whether it's successful or not, and whether your subs are going up quick enough, and whether enough people are watching it, then it's just a very negative spiral. So I do think that part of that, going back to this first point, is how many books you read. You should read the amount of books that you need to read. That's it. You know, if you are, you know, because I was talking about I just mentioned those two booktubers that do read a lot. When I did that 30 book challenge, I just picked, because I wanted to go down the road and buy a 50p book, and I couldn't do that until I read those books. So I read short books very quickly. I read much more voraciously than I normally would, and it was ridiculous. I was like obsessed for a couple of months to try and get through those 30 books, and it was hard work. And I would never read that many books that quickly normally, but it's just a stupid challenge I gave myself because I felt like I had too many books. And I got rid of loads of books as well at the same time. But usually, when I do my Goodreads challenge, my book challenge every year, I usually put between 60 and 70 books on there. And Kim mentions in her video that there are a lot of booktubers that will say they read like 200 books a year. But I'm not going to think, oh, I'm not reading enough. I know that 60 or 70 is around a safe bet as to what I would read. But if I don't make that challenge, which I have done, but if there was a year where I didn't, I'm not going to think that I'd let myself down. I'd just think, okay, fair enough. So, I know what my average reading is. I'm not going to worry about the fact that it's not 200 books. But I think people can, and people can worry about, well, you know, do I even deserve to do book reviews if I'm not reading enough? Well, yeah, of course. To not read enough, that's just a nonsense sentence. It doesn't make any sense, because who are you? But what are you basing it on? You know, who are you competing against? You shouldn't be competing against other people that have got more time, and they spend much of their day reading. I mean, as Kim said, Kim went into more detail about why she can't just spend all day reading. I've got a full-time job. I've got a band. I've got a family. There's tons of things that stop me from reading as well. I've actually put a pause on my writing at the moment as well, and I want to get back into that. So that's going to interrupt my reading as well. Writing of novels and all that. I'm still writing songs, but all of these things mean that there's loads and loads of things that occupy my time. There's loads of things that occupy my thoughts. There's loads of, my job, my teaching job, gives me literally no headspace sometimes. So sometimes I'm too tired to read. But that's just one of those things. It just doesn't matter, you know. The last 2 weeks I've been reading one book. So I've just been reading this, and I still haven't finished it. I've got through beyond halfway, which is good. But I'm absolutely loving it. So there's no reflection on the book. But the first week I started reading this, I was falling asleep every time I got home because I was so knackered. And in the second week of reading it, which is this week, I've still been tired. So I've read some of the book in the evenings, which I would do normally. But I've also been doing some teaching work as well, and I just haven't had the same sort of time. So, I'm loving it, and I know that it's not a reflection of the book, but I also know that if I was going to get stressed about it and think, oh my God, I wanted to read this many books this month and it's not happening, then that would be a negative thing, and that would make the booktubing experience negative, it would make reading negative, and there's no point. You know, it doesn't make any sense, and it's fine. You know, you shuffle around your TBR, and if you don't read 200 books a year, you're not going to get through some of the things you want to read, and it doesn't matter. So I do think it's really important, if you do want to put up content, that you don't stress too much about what the content is, and you don't get upset about the fact that you might have planned something and you couldn't do it, so you had to put it off for another time, or you changed your mind about what you're going to do and you're not going to do that anymore. I think it's really important just to relax and say, and think, and just remind yourself that it's supposed to be fun. And the problem is, I think, something that I don't know if Kim stressed too much, I don't remember her stressing this too much, and that is that you want your channel to be a good channel. So I think the pressure that people put on themselves to provide good content, and possibly to keep putting videos out, because I've accidentally, and it's accidental, I've been putting loads of videos out, and I've always thought, well, should I just spread them out, because I'm surely going to run out of ideas at some point. But I think, oh, sorry, I'll just try it anyway, and if I run out of ideas, I run out of ideas. So I've tried to be relaxed about it, but I've been putting out like 2 a week or something, which I wasn't planning on doing initially. I was thinking, I remember when I first started doing it, I was thinking, oh, if I put out something once every 10 days, then that might sort of garner some interest, and it might be quite good, and I might be able to keep that going. And I'm putting out quite a lot, and it's not because I have a particular design or a particular purpose behind it. I just think of ideas and get excited about it. So, and I want people to see it. So it's literally because of enthusiasm. But I imagine there are probably some people that see other people posting, like, I mean, Mocha Vaughan and Ollie Criminally put up something every day, pretty much. And Matt, Paperback Junkie, does more than one a day. Obviously, Steve Donahue does about 8 a day. So, you know, there are some people that post a lot. But if you're not one of those people, you haven't got that kind of time in your day, or you haven't got the same kind of, you know, because some of these people, they do regular features. And if you haven't got something like that going on your channel, it's a lot harder to put up the content. So if you're not doing that, I don't think you should be worried about whether that's affecting how good the channel is. You know, I think you can have a good, you know, there are good channels that post something once a month, you know, some really good channels that do that. So, again, I don't think it's about that, but I can imagine there's lots of people that panic about that and feel the pressure to put out a lot of videos. And you don't need to do that, or at least I don't feel like you need to do it as a viewer. I don't think there's anything wrong competing with yourself. So this is like a mantra for life in general. Actually, I'm not very competitive with other people, but I am competitive with myself, and I think that's a positive thing. So I know that I can be better at certain things, or I can, you know, my ambitions as a musician are based around writing better songs, playing to a bigger audience, getting my songs out there, those kind of things, and having the best sounding band. That's one of the things that I'm sort of competing against myself and I'm being ambitious with, and I think that's positive. And like with the teaching, I always want to be a better teacher and be as there for the students as I can be, but I'm not looking at another member of staff thinking, oh, I need to be more like them. Same as I'm not looking at another band and thinking that our band should be more like them. It's definitely about thinking about yourself and what do you want out of whatever it is you're doing. You know, and if you're a booktuber and you want to put content out there, you know, if you like what you're putting out there, if you're quite happy with it and you want to put it out, you probably will naturally get better at it as time goes on. I've become much more relaxed, and I think I've been better at it. If I watch my early videos, I'm much more nervous and it doesn't flow really well, not as natural with it. But bottom line is, if you like what you're putting out, that's fine. That should be all it's about. And if other people like it, that's brilliant. And if, you know, so many people like it that your subscribers go up and your connections go up and you feel like, you know, you're really kind of doing something really cool with the channel, then that's fantastic. But if you start worrying more about that than whether or not you're enjoying it or not, then you'll probably stop enjoying it. I think it's important to remember that if you start feeling it like that, that is exactly the opposite of what this should be about. It's a good thing. And if it's not a good thing, then, you know, I think it's worth taking a moment, thinking about your approach. And, okay, I could possibly be worrying about the wrong things, stressing about the wrong things, concentrating on the wrong things. So, so that was my second point about the idea of, I don't think it's a bad thing to compete with yourself, but I do think it can be a negative thing to compete with other people that have got different lives, different reasons why they do it, different content. You know, it's just a very negative thing, I think. And it could turn you off reading. I mean, that's the thing. If you're not careful, if you worry about all this sort of stuff and you go off Booktube, you actually might stop reading because of that. And clearly, that's definitely not what you want to do, because this whole point of Booktube is the love of books and love of reading. So another thing I wanted to mention was the book events. So I put up a recent video saying that I felt like I'd concentrate too much on that. And this was one of the books I hadn't read yet that I was really excited about reading, but partly it was because I kept doing book events. And I really couldn't wait to read it, but I didn't have time to read it. So I've given myself more time. So I should be able to get to that soon. But I was doing all those book events. And sometimes the book events, the attraction of the book events, clearly it's that connection, which is important. That's why we do it, for the connections. But I guess it's about judging how much you can do without it affecting what you want to read, and whether or not all your time is taken up with suggestions from other people that you feel, oh yeah, I could do that, do a bit of that, and I could detour a little bit and read that kind of thing. And also the balance can be within your own ideas of what you want your channel to be. So for example, I did a second time travel video recently, and I wanted to find 10 more books I wanted to talk about. And within that, I had a bunch of books that I hadn't read that were, well, these 3 were books I had on the pile to read, but I didn't get to because I decided that I'd found the 10 I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to read these with some more that I've found that are time travel books more recently, to do another video later on. I'm not going to tell myself when that's going to be. I'm just going to read another load and then do like a top 25 or something ages away when I feel like I've got the material to do it. So I'm not going to put pressure on myself to have a date for it. And I think it's really important, if you want to do something, do it with some sort of sensible timeline that you're not going to stress about it, because you know we have got very busy lives and we can't always do that. And there's loads of things. I mean, I've made a little note of these little things I'm trying to do. I'm trying to discover if I like J.G. Ballard and if I like James Baldwin as well. I've got this big Ray Bradbury thing I'm going to be doing next year. I do eventually want to do a H.G. Wells thing, and I'm doing this Philip K. Dick thing in December, which I haven't announced yet, but all of these different things are things I could stress about, but I'm not going to stress about it because there's no need. There's no need. It's not even something I have to do. You know, there's a bunch of other things listed, like some classics that I want to read as well. I've done a video for that. But the point is, it doesn't matter. You know, I've got these videos scheduled up to kind of say what I'm going to do, but none of them include very specific timelines. I'm going to do them as and when. So the third point that I wanted to mention that Kim touches on is Booktube expensive? I think I think most people, I hope, have got access to libraries, and I do think that that's a really good source for getting hold of books, as well as a very accessible thing, which is really, really, really ridiculously cheap books. So nowadays, books, I've noticed that Americans and Canadians have said this, as well as I know it's definitely true for the UK. You can find things really, really cheap for 50 cents or $1 in America, or 50p a pound, £1.50 or something like that down here. And like I've got some classics I've bought recently. So I've bought Jamaica Inn, and I've bought, actually this isn't a recent, I've had this for years, but this is something I've been meaning to read soon, The Journal of the Plague Year, and the first Salman Rushdie book I've had. These were all really cheap, like a pound or something like that, £1.52, in a really good condition. So, you know, you can get good condition books very cheap. So I don't think it's an expense thing. Making videos, editing videos, having an editing suite can be, if you want to make it really flashy. But what I was going to say was, most of the booktubers I watch regularly, that I've seen on here in general anyway, just talk to the camera. And I was thinking about, well, is this true for some of the really big ones, the ones that have got tons and tons of subscribers, hundreds of thousands of subscribers? And actually it's true, because one of the ones that I think has got one of the most number of subscribers is Murphy Napier, and she just literally talks to the camera. There's not a lot of editing going on at all. So I don't think it's about that, you know, to make your Booktube channel successful, you have to have really clever editing and crazy effects and stuff going on all the time. I just don't think that's a thing. So the expense for having some sort of crazy editing software is not a thing either. So I do think that can be a little bit of a red herring as well. Oh yeah, and then one last point about, do you have to review new releases? So I just want to make a point that I bought this when it first came out, and I loved Blake Crouch. I was very excited about reviewing it. I don't really like hardbacks, so as a rule, I don't review things as they come out, just because I don't like hardbacks. But I was so excited about having this, I did buy it on hardback, but I still haven't read it, so it's not going to be new by the time I do read it. So it's quite funny. So, but again, I'm not going to stress about it. Doesn't matter. I think it's funny, really, that I had these plans to review it as a new release, but it doesn't matter. And actually, looking at just in general, some of the things I've noticed, I think the biggest hitters, the book reviews that seem to get the most attention, are actually either classics or things that have been around a while. It doesn't seem like you'd actually do yourself a massive favour success-wise, if you were worried about that, in reviewing new releases anyway. You know, I think there's a bit of a clamber for reviewing Stephen King books as soon as they come out. But again, I don't really think, one, that's that big a thing. You know, it's just something that may be a thing. But it's the only author I can think of that's like that. It seems like the videos that get a lot of views are actually the reviews of the classics and popular books. So, you know, if someone did a review of The Martian by Andy Weir, it would probably get loads of hits now, because it's not necessarily about the newest thing, it's about what's popular. So I do think that's a thing anyway as well. The overall point of this, and I do think that Kim's video is really important, I'll leave a link to her video, is you've got to be you. You've got to do whatever makes you think you're putting out interesting content, because someone else will think that. And she does make a really good point. If you don't do that, it would probably be really obvious. So, you know, I've literally put a quote here. She says, try not to put that pressure on yourself. Be honest. You know, honesty is priceless. And I think honesty would give you connections in the Booktube community, because I think everyone would value that. And it's something that, you know, you can be proud of, that you have done something honest, and you've not tried to be someone you weren't. You haven't read stuff just because you felt like you should. You know, you've been honest with whatever it was that you were enthusiastic about, and maybe honest about the reviews as well. You know, I tried not to be too negative on my channel, but there are people who really focus on that. Be you. So yeah, that's really what I was trying to say. I think that's pretty much sums it up. Oh yeah, and there's that sort of okay. One last point: the idea of being late for the party or fear of missing out. And again, that is just a big ball of stress. Don't worry about it. If you're late for the party, just turn up late. You know, when I do eventually review Project Hail Mary, when I do read that and review it, which I will do, that's going to be well after it's out and well after every other review's come out. But who cares? Doesn't matter. I haven't read it yet. That's fine. Don't stress about it. Do whatever you need to do to enjoy your Booktube experience. Hope a lot of that made sense. Thanks a lot for watching. I apologise that it's so long. Thanks. Bye.